Well, welcome to our very first edition of Edits with Al. My name is Alfonso Chavez, and I will be hosting this video blog, I guess you could call it. And it's basically going to be about me doing some edits, and I do them late at night, as you can tell. It's the best time and the only time that I really have to really get a lot of work taken care of. So I do a lot of stuff at night. But the goal of this new video blog is just me editing some pictures. So we're gonna go through some of these edits here in Lightroom, and Lightroom is my particular choice. It may or may not be yours, but that's what I use, and that's what I will be using here in the show. So just come along, and I will explain a little bit of what I do and how I do it, why I do it, stuff like that. And today we're going to go ahead and start with Caitlin, who was a young lady that we photographed a couple of months ago. I want to say about 6 months ago. Don't quote me on that because I don't remember exactly the date. But we're going to go ahead and start with this picture of Caitlin. And it's already in Lightroom, so I'm not going to show you those steps today, but I will go over that in more detail as questions may come in about how I do that. So here's the picture that I went ahead and chose for us to edit today. It's pretty solidly done from the beginning, but it still needs a little bit of work, and I'll point out what I see wrong with this picture, because every picture has something wrong with it. We do our best to try and get it as close to being perfect in camera, but it never really happens. It's never ever perfectly right on. So let's go ahead and get to this. And one of the first things I do is, if I was looking through and just trying to decide which picture that I want to work on, if you notice, I take several pictures of the same pose. And the reason why I do that is because I'm working at trying to get focus as well as trying to get an expression from our subject. So the first thing I always check before I even start an edit is focus. Focus is critical, and it's the one thing you cannot fix. So if your focus is off, good luck trying to fix that, because in my opinion it's totally unfixable, and I think most other photographers will agree with me. So our focus is looking pretty good, and again, it's not perfect, but it's good enough, and it'll work. So here in the panel here, I work this top panel from left to right, and then I work this panel from top to bottom. Now there's no there's no true set way to do this. This is the way I like to work, and for me it works for me because it's I follow the same order every time, and it allows me to make sure that I don't miss any panels. And after I go through the process one time, sometimes I will go back and visit a specific panel for whatever reason. If there's something that after I've gone through the process one time, if there's something I see that it doesn't appear to be correct, and I will go back and correct it in the appropriate panel. So first thing that's here is the crop panel, and this particular picture, I don't want to do any cropping to it. We don't have a lot of space to work with. As you can see, her elbow to here and her elbow to here are kind of close. Plus we got this really nice sign here that we want to leave in the picture, so I'm not gonna do any cropping to this picture. The next one over is a spot removal tool, which can be used for a lot of things. It can be used to remove distractions, but the main thing that I use it for is for blemish removal on the young ladies if they do have any blemishes. But Miss Dahlia, excuse me, I apologize for saying her name wrong. Miss Dahlia did an excellent job on this young lady's makeup. So if she did have any problems, they were taken care of, and it looks really good. So I won't have to worry too much about that on this young lady, Miss Caitlin. So we're gonna go ahead and skip over that. The next tab over is red eye, and red eye comes about by using on-camera flash. If you're using on-camera flash, then the chances of red eye are gonna go way up. I never do on-camera flash. It's always off-camera flash. So I don't think I've ever used this, and all the time that I've ever done Lightroom, I've never used this. Because when I was using on-camera flash, I couldn't afford to have Lightroom, so I never had to use this tab. The next one over is a graduated filter, and it allows you to dodge and burn, just like the adjustment brush, but in a doing it at one full fellow swoop instead of having to do bits and pieces at one time, which can be an advantage if you're trying to take care of a large area. So one of the things that I want to do is this wood right here off to the right, for all purposes, any kind of wood that you have in pictures, when it's darkened, it gives it a totally different look. It makes the wood almost pop off the picture, make it look real. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is use this panel right here, which is our graduated filter, and I'm going to start over here. And this is really real easy to apply, as you'll be able to tell right here. It's just going to open three lines, and within each of those two sections, it'll gradually get darker, and it'll work its way from the edge and gradually fall off as it gets closer to this outer edge right here. Okay, so right now it's at negative almost a full stop. We're gonna go ahead and do the same as we did on the opposite side. Bring this in, and I always like to go just slightly into their face, because I will go over it again if I need to. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. So then we can go ahead and close that, and you can tell, see how this just kind of almost, it kind of makes it almost look as if we have a beam of light just flowing right over the top of her, as you can see by this area right in here, and as well as this lower part, which I really like. It's a great effect. And then we have the radial filter, and the radial filter, what it does is it allows us to pick out an area, and it could be, say, Caitlin here, and we can decide if we want to make her brighter or darker. I don't really use the radial tool too much, just because I prefer the more preciseness of the adjustment brush, which is what I'm going to show you next. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to keep this at one stop below here, and so any part of the image that I paint over is going to have one stop less. And so I'm going to work on this little area right here, and all I'm trying to do is, you can tell the difference between here and here. We always want to try and keep our images flat as much as possible, because contrast can really bring a picture down. And then what we're going to try and do is so I'm going to take some of this out, because it's really noticeable right here. So just like so, and then once it's already painted, the area is painted, you can adjust it to where so you can see what's going on here. And I'm going to darken just so you could see, and then I'm just going to bring this up to where it's even and matches with what's around it, just like so. Just like that. And it's not a huge difference. One stop, it's not a huge difference. And then we're going to do the same down in this little spot right here. Oh, and you know what? Let's go ahead and make that a different one. And the reason why we want to make this different is because it's in a different part of the picture. And not only that, but the adjustment may be different compared to what we have up here. If I continue to brush right here, it's going to apply the exact same adjustment that I made here, and we don't want to do that. And the way we do that is by clicking here on our new, and it's going to give me a whole new brush to work with here. And then we're going to brush into this little spot here. Okay, just like so. I don't want to do that. Okay, that looks good. And then once again, we're going to play with this. And all we're trying to do is we're just trying to match it to where it's more of a flat image, which we have. I think I could come back a little bit more on that, just like so. And it's not a drastic difference, but you can definitely see the difference before and after. See how this is see how this really sticks out like a sore thumb. And you know, some of the things that I do on these adjustments, most people, if they're looking at the picture, will never catch it. It's very minor, but for the photographer, you'll notice that a lot of times you're going to catch stuff that the customer will not catch. But if you can take care of it and make it look its best, that's what photography is all about. We're trying to give the customer the best product possible. So even though they don't know or don't see it, just know that you did it, and the picture's close to being as good, as close to being as close to perfect as possible. So here we go. Here's the difference, and you see it's very minor from here to here, here to here. We still got a little bit of a bright spot right here, and if you really want it to be precise, you could go ahead and do another little brush. Actually, just one little push like that is good. And I think one stop will work. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, and there we go. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. It's solid. The picture was solid before we started, but now it's really squared up. And one of the ways you can tell is by looking at your histogram. There's no blown out area. There's no completely black areas, which is what we want. Okay, so now we've done all our tabs across the top, and like I said, you might want to revisit these later on if you've gone through the process and realize that there's something else that needs correction. But now we're going to go ahead and move into the first tab, basic, and that's where a majority of all my edits are going to come from. And same thing from top to bottom. Normally I like to just guess at what our white balance is going to be, and the way you do that is by just over exaggerating it and then just bringing it back to where you think it would look nice. But the fact that she's got on a white shirt, we can actually use that to get a sample here, and Lightroom does a pretty good job. You can see the blue tint here to here. See how that is? You can actually see the blue tint, and over time your eye, you'll get a skilled eye, and you'll see this before you even make color corrections. I saw it right off the bat, and we're using very minimal flash on this picture, so it's hard to tell. But yeah, here we go. This is a corrected white, and this is after. And she's got very beautiful dark skin, and it's also got a warmth to it. So even though the setting's pretty good, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more warmth to it. And again, this is adding to your style, part of your style, the way you edit. You're adding to it, and it's just a little bit. I just brought it a couple more points up to increase that warmth, and you can see the warmth everywhere. Even in these little areas here, you can see the blue cast is gone. Okay, so now the next thing I'll look at here, which is the next thing down, tint. And Canon cameras are notorious for this. If you have a Canon camera, you know what I'm talking about. When you're doing portraits or anybody's pictures, you'll notice that a lot of red tint gets thrown in there. If you're for lighter complected individuals, it works fine. They'll look fantastic. But if you're a darker complected, just like I am, and Caitlin is here, we both have, in our opinion, the nice dark skin. So we have a +5 here, and I always like to bring this down to 0 usually on our dark complected individuals, and it's not a huge difference, but it's noticeable. I notice it. So we can take that out, and so now the blue tint's gone and the red tint's gone. You can see how the color just kind of really just clears up. It looks very nice. And my edit style is always neutral or natural looking. I guess you could call it what's the word? Classic. There we go. Classic. That's what I'm looking for. It's kind of a classic look, which is just basic. I mean, the colors are correct. The picture doesn't look all photoshopped and all that other good stuff. It's just a basic colors that look straight. They look real. I mean, they look what it would look like if you were standing there with me taking this picture. This is what it looks like. So now we've got the colors all squared away here. Now I'm going to come down, and our very first thing is exposure. And once again, if you look at our histogram, you see this area right in here. We've got a lot of room right here to push this image over to make it all nice and bright the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this over, and I'm going to start with just one stop and see what it looks like. There's a little over a stop. We still got a little headroom here, but I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there for right now. And that's the thing, you might have to revisit it. But for right now, I'm just going to bring that up just enough to where we got that little bit of headroom. And then next up is contrast, and I like to add a lot of contrast. And contrast, very simply, is it's the difference between one color and the color that's next to it. So if you have, in this particular picture, we got the wood background, and we also got the green plants back there. So it's just going to separate, make the greeners green and make the brown more brown, and so the contrast kind of makes the picture kind of come to life, come out a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and I really like to push this up. I usually like to start at around 40 and see what that looks like first, and that looks pretty darn good. And you can see how the difference between the hair and the background kind of just really just kicks off of there. Same thing here. See, the wood, the color of the wood just really kicks off of that background a little bit more. Even in the bokeh areas, you see. See, this was almost kind of blending into that, and now you can just really see the difference here. So 40 seems to work here on this particular picture. And one of the things you always want to check, so once I've got my contrast in, then I can afford to push this up just a tad. Just like that. And then you always want to go back and check your detail, and she's got plenty of detail in her dress that we don't have to worry about. It looks fantastic. Colors are dead on now, and our exposure is perfect, and then our contrast is perfect here too. And as you can tell, the histogram has just totally, look at that, right? You're sitting right in there. It's kind of like building a house. We have a nice solid foundation, and not all histograms are going to look like that. If you're shooting a high contrast kind of shot, then of course you're going to have, this will be flat in the center, and you'll have a lot over here to the light side and a lot over here to the dark side. That's not what I do. I don't do a whole bunch of those kind of shots. My shots are all nice and even. That's what I like. So highlights, we really don't have any highlights to worry about. Shadows, we don't have any shadows in this picture either. So then the next thing up is whites and black points. And white and black points are important because a lot of times, especially in the beginning, and I made this mistake a lot myself, is when I take a picture to go and get it printed out, if my white points and black points are not set and I'm just looking at it on the screen and not paying attention to my histogram, I can look at a picture on my computer and think that it looks fine, and then when I actually take it to have it printed out, come to find out that the picture is way underexposed, sometimes by a stop. I've even done it 2 stops underexposed. So then what happens is I got to reprint them again. I just lost money, so I had to figure out a solution. Now you can get all kinds of different opinions, but I think that if you learn to set your white points and your black points on everything that you do, and it's easier to do, and as we get further along in the process, when I do several pictures, I'll show you how to set black and white points pretty quickly. But once you set them, then you know that when you send that picture to print, no matter what it looks like on your computer, you know that you're going to get a nice solid print from it. And the way you do it is pretty simple. At the top you have these 2 bars, and it shows you your highlights and it shows you your shadow area. Okay, so now if I jump on, say, my highlights, and I make my highlights wider, it's going to show me what areas of the picture would be blown out if I were to raise my white point. So we're just going to come back until we don't have any blowout areas, and then once I get to that part, then I'll just usually will come off just a tad of that, so another 10 maybe, and that's it. It's done. You know that the whites are white. Same thing with our black points. We want to take it to the extreme to where we see where our black points are, and there's not a whole lot, but we need to know where they're at, and then we just come back on it, and we just keep an eye on it. And black points are a little bit different, because I will tend to leave black points in a little bit more, because there are going to be true black points in any picture. That's just the way it is. So here on this side of the face, it's not in an area, it's hidden, it's in her hair, and most likely that particular part of her hair is totally black. I mean, it just is. So that's fine. I mean, that's that's good to go. So the adjustment was somewhat. It was 31 for the whites and negative 24 for the blacks, and I'm pretty happy with it. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty darn good, actually. Clarity is something that I see a lot of people just overuse a lot. I look at pictures and they just totally blast away on clarity. Clarity, in my opinion, can really destroy a picture. So I tend to keep it very low, 10 at the max. And a lot of times if the picture looks sharp, you just keep it at 5, because you got to remember, whenever you mess with clarity and sharpening your picture, you're introducing noise. So if you have very minimal noise like we do on this particular shot, then there's no sense in us going back and adding noise in, because that's really what we would be doing. So I'm just going to put clarity at 5, and vibrance is one of the things that I do add. I do like a lot of vibrance, and I usually like to go to 20 to start off with, and I'll look at it as a full, and it looks really good. Okay, so there's no vibrance. And 10, and it's not a big huge jump, but it just makes the greeners greener and the blues bluer. See that? Let's look around here. It looks good. I'm just looking at the edges here. It looks fantastic. I got nothing to complain about here. And saturation, I never mess with saturation. I just leave that alone. Vibrance does a really good job of increasing our saturation, so we don't mess with it too much. Okay. Tonal curves, it's just a way of adjusting everything that we just did using a tonal curve. You can make it brighter or darker, or increase color or a specific color. I choose not to work that way. Some people prefer to work that way versus the method that I just used right now. But if it works for them, hey, let them keep using it. I don't care to use it. Next tab up is our color and black and white. And here you can convert images to black and white if you want to. I don't convert too much black and white. I prefer to do it all in color, because either way, if the customer takes the picture and decides that they want a black and white, they're still going to get a solid image if the rest of the image is solid. So I don't really do too much within the color and black and white. You can also adjust specific colors. If you wanted to add specifically more green, you could do that in that tab. Then you have split toning, which is kind of, in my opinion, is more of an artistic thing. You can add colors into the highlights and add different colors into the shadow areas. And if you play with it enough, you can really get some nice looking stuff. I've played with it before. I particularly don't like it. I've used it on a couple of things just to change it up, but it's not something that I do all the time. Detail is sharpening, and you can also do noise reduction as well in the detail. So we don't really have too much noise to work with, to say of anything about noise, but we do want to do a little bit of sharpening. And it comes in as on a raw file. Lightroom will always add 25 to sharpening, just to kind of give it a little bit of an edgy look to it. And I particularly like to add a little bit more, but I always like to apply a mask ahead of time. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So if we come down to where it says masking, and if I press and hold the Alt key and then left click on the button, you can tell by looking at the white that if I add any adjusting right now to my sharpness, it's going to happen over the entire image, which is what we don't want. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm holding my Alt key. I'm going to slide this slider over, and keep in mind that the white area is the part that's going to get sharpened in the image. Okay, so we don't want to apply sharpening where we don't need it, because remember, sharpening does add in noise. So now we got a nice little outline of Caitlin's face. Okay, and now I'm going to add in the additional 25 to bring us up to 50, and take a look at it. And in my opinion, it looks pretty good, and so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to leave that just the way it is now. Now her eyes and her eyes and hair are a little bit sharper now, and it looks great. Okay. And like I said, you can also do noise reduction if you care to do that. I very rarely do noise reduction in pictures unless the photos are just really shot because I had to go high ISO on a shot or something like that. But it's very rare since I shoot small format camera. I shoot APS-C and not full frame. I have to bring up my ambient a lot of times to get the shots that I want, and so I'm shooting 800 usually max in my ISO, and so there's not a whole lot of noise, so I don't mess with it too much. So after detail, we have lens correction, and lens correction it's always good to add it in if the profile is there for that particular lens, which in this case it's the 70-200. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my profile on, and you can see it says 70-200. It's going to make any corrections. And then I still like to jump over to manual, and only because she has a white top on, for whatever reason, white tends to show up all the distortion as far as fringing goes, and fringing is just a purple edge to the outfit or object that's white for whatever reason. And so I'm going to add a little bit in, and I usually will take this to 5. If I don't notice it, I'll just go ahead and take this to 5. But if I really notice it, I'll zoom into it as so while I'm making the adjustment. But see, there's no fringing. It looks like no purple around the edge here of the white, so I'm just going to leave it at 5. That's just to say that I put some in. Transformation, I don't do any transformation at all. Effects, you can add grain into your picture. You can use the dehaze tool if you had some kind of smoke and you wanted to. If you were doing a landscape picture and you had a whole bunch of little haze, you could use the dehaze tool. And this is for vignettes, if you wanted to add a vignette. And in some cases the vignette does a fantastic job. In other cases it doesn't. You can put a white vignette around them, which some people like. You can put a dark vignette around them, which some people like. And I work them in on a few vignettes on a few of my pictures, but not every single one of them. I think this particular picture will benefit from it, but ever so slightly. I'm gonna just ever so slightly, and you'll see what it's doing is it's just darkening the edges of the picture. And the reason we do that is because we want people to not spend time looking at the edge of the pictures, but rather the subject. Caitlin's in the center, so by us adding a vignette, a dark area around the edges, see, I don't want to overdo it because then it looks overdone. But if we do it very subtle, most people won't even catch it. But it does lead the eye into the center, which is where Caitlin is at. Okay, so I just put ever so slightly. I used a 21. I'm gonna dial that back down to 17. We'll leave it at 17. It's just a really light vignette here on the edges. Okay, and that's all I'm gonna touch there. And we'll go ahead and close that panel out. And then the last one is camera calibrations. Again, it's another panel I don't even look at. For whatever reason, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's something that could make my pictures look just totally fantastic and amazing. But I think for the most part, we do fantastic and amazing already. So I'm not gonna mess with it. So essentially, that's my finished picture. I mean, here's the before and after. Caitlin did a fantastic job on this shoot. And she is 90% of this picture. I mean, without her very nice expression, nice smile there, she's got a glow in her eye. Without her doing that, I don't care who you're photographing. You could be photographing a supermodel, but if she's giving you a frown, no expression at all, then you're going to get a bad picture, even if she is a supermodel. But Caitlin looks fantastic. I really like this. This would be great as an 8x10 to put up. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this edition of Edits with Al. This is our very first edition. So if you're watching this and you watched it all the way to the end, I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions about anything that I ever do on this, please let us know. I will be more than happy to answer your questions. And we definitely want to hear from you. So if you saw this video, let me know. Let me say, hey, Al, I saw your video. I appreciate it. And I'd also like to know how to use the tone curves. And I will make an effort to use the tone curve just to show you how it's done, even though it's not something I would do. But my goal is always to keep it simple, and that's what we want to do. And that's what we do here at Camera 64. We provide solid pictures They're simple. You can print every single picture that we're going to give you, and it's going to come out great. So for today, our sponsor is ourselves. Camera 64 is our sponsor. I am your host, Alfonso Chavez. If you can send us a message here on Facebook or YouTube, wherever it is that you're watching this. And you can also send us an email. Our email is alfonso@camera64.com. Or you can visit our website. It's www.camera64.com. And you can go to the contact page, and all our information is there. If you don't have the opportunity to write this information down right now, you can visit us there. And you can call us too. If you have a quinceañera or a wedding coming up and you'd like us to shoot that for you, we'd be more than happy to do it. Our phone number is 210-213-8061. So you take care, and thanks for visiting us. Thanks for being with us on our very first episode. Hopefully there are many more to come. Till then, you take care. Bye-bye.